Good evening and welcome to the Town of Raymond Planning Board for Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. The board does have a quorum and we will start with roll call. Ed, would you start us off?
Ed Cranich, sure.
Kevin Woodbury.
Mike D'Angelo.
Mark Childs.
The board does have a quorum and we work from an established agenda. We have the approval of the minutes for the February 9th, 2022 meeting. We have some new business. And then the old business is a tabled application for Raymond Hills LLC, followed by some planning communications, some code enforcement communications. Somewhere in here, I guess we'll just touch on the ordinance if there's any issues on the ordinance reviews that we are working on. So our first order of business is then the acceptance of the February 9th, 2022 minutes. Does anybody have any additions, deletions, corrections?
I have a question on page 2, the second to last paragraph. There's a reference to someone named Phil. I don't know who that is. Alex, that was something you stated. Who's Phil?
And that's the town attorney.
Okay. You think we should just add his last name so people know who it is?
I can do that if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments on the minutes?
No.
Move to accept with the change, adding Phil's last name.
For a
Second.
We have to do it's a voice vote because we're on Zoom. Ed?
Yes. Approve.
Approve. Greg?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so the motion passes unanimously. And we're on to some new business. Jen does say no, but I have received communications from Kyle Bancroft that he has resigned from the board. Job plus family makes it really difficult for him to get to the meetings. So that is now a vacancy, and I think we do have somebody, Sandy, in the works that would like to join.
Yes, we do. I
Okay.
will get in touch with them and I'll do the application.
Yeah, perfect. And then maybe get that to us for and invite that person to the next board meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, old business. Our Raymond Hills LLC project. And we have no Jim. Or do we have a Jim? I'm showing no Jim. No Jim. Okay. So, for the project, we are pretty familiar with the project. I think then the best way to approach this, Dustin, you have Jim's latest memo?
Yes, I do. Yeah, the March 8th.
Yes, March 8th for tonight's prep for tonight's meeting. Okay.
Yep, I do.
Okay. So I think first thing we have to do is we need a motion to take it off the table. So could I get somebody to make that motion?
I move to take the application off the table.
For consideration. Second, any discussion? All those in favor, voice vote again, please. Ed,
Aye.
yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Greg, yes.
Aye.
I would yes. So
Aye.
we're all, it is off the table. Dustin, I'm thinking with we are lacking Jim. The best way to approach this is to go through Jim's memo. And address any of those issues that are in there. Vice kind of how we normally do the intro to both. Does that sound okay with the board?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yes.
Yes.
So if we start off with Jim's memo, I think it's just page 2. Item alpha.
Yep. Yeah, so on, so since we were last in front of the board, I mean, we had presented quite a bit of information, right before the last meeting. So I think this memo basically goes through and reviews that information. So, on page 2 on Jim's memo, on part A, I spoke with Jim today about this. He just wanted to make sure that, any conditions that were attached to the state permits for the septic system are included on the subdivision plan. So we do have a note on there related to that. So it was more just a make sure that that information was on there. So I believe we have addressed that comment.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think he had anything under B and C.
Well, I think if B and C are the water, I think you've met that, right? The fire department's okay with the gallons per minute flow. Wayne, are you okay?
Yes, we're okay with the fire flow.
Okay. And I agree, we're all set with item C. So item delta,
Okay. So moving on to item D on page 3, on soil and erosion. Jim just had a comment at the bottom there that he just wanted some on-site monitoring during construction. So if that's something that Jim's firm wants to do, or if that's something that we need to get a third party involved with, we're not opposed to whatever the town feels is appropriate as far as construction monitoring.
for environmental type stuff, which just sounds like it is, we've used the Cumberland County Conservation Commission to come and monitor. Does that sound okay with you, Dustin?
Yep, yeah, we can do a contract directly with Cumberland County Soil and Water. That way we pay them to do their inspections and they send us the bill, or if they want to do it as an escrow. And we'll coordinate that with Chris Baldwin. That's fine.
Okay. Is that okay with the board? Any problems?
Sounds good.
Okay. Echo, unreasonable public congestion.
Yep, so on that section, there was one comment that Jim had put in here, just mentioning that there was another driveway just to the north of the entrance that he wanted shown on the plans. When I talked to him today, he thought that was just a leftover comment from a previous memo, because there's only one driveway to the north that is on Suzanne Boris property, and it is shown on the subdivision plan and the plan and profile drawing. So I think Jim was satisfied based on our conversation today that that's already been addressed. And then otherwise, it was just, we had provided some traffic data as far as what the anticipated trip generation would be for the project. And DOT's issued their driveway entrance permit, so we're not anticipating any congestion or traffic related issues.
Excuse me 1 minute. Bob, I just spoke to Jim. He's working on signing in now.
Oh, perfect. I think let's just keep on going.
Okay.
I think we're doing fine. Foxtrot, adequate soil sewage waste disposal. It's private waste disposal, right? For trash.
Correct. So we do think it's appropriate that there be some sort of a condition of approval or a note that just states that, trash hauling will be private, and it'll be, individual curbside pickup for each of the units, because there's no dumpster anymore, but that it would be private, and there's no anticipation that it would be, town provided, dumpster removal services or anything. So.
And the cost associated with that is going to get rolled into the condo document?
Correct. Yeah. They'll have to pay for that. They'll have to go out and contract for it, every year or whatever they do it. So that'll just be completely separate from the town, and they'll pay for it 100%.
Okay. And the septic systems?
Yep, yeah, Jim just had some concerns just to make sure that there was adequate separation between the buildings to be able to get in and around the leach fields, to be able to pump the septic tanks and things like that. So when he and I talked about it today, maybe he'll hop on here in a minute, but he seemed to be okay with how the buildings are spaced out. I mean, most of these buildings have about 30 feet of separation between them, so there's plenty of room to move in and around with like a small excavator or a skid steer if they had to go in and repair a septic system. And we have a dedicated access road that'll be like a reinforced turf road that's being built in between units 14 and 15 to get out and around up towards that engineered septic system, and then around the stormwater filter basins down to the outlets of those so that they can all be maintained.
Okay. Was that his concern about the drainage behind units 14 and 15?
Yeah, he was just making sure that, there was going to be adequate access in and around those units, because there is some drainage that runs down behind those buildings. But where we have that reinforced ground area, it'll be, capable of, it's not going to make a big mess if a small piece of equipment had to get back there to do some maintenance.
Okay. As far as the board goes, if you guys have questions, please jump in as we go along here. Item golf, unreasonable burden of the ability of the town of Raymond to dispose of solid waste sewage. I think that one is all right.
Yep.
Hotel.
Yeah, I mean, this condo type projects won't have a big demand on municipal governmental services. They usually don't have kids in the school systems, or, all the roads are private. So we didn't see any big demand there. Certainly have been working with fire department to make sure they have adequate access into the facility. So it wouldn't be an unreasonable burden for emergency service to be able to service the property.
Okay. And DEP has already come back. Is that stormwater? So we're all set there?
Correct. Yeah, DEP's approved. Yep. And then section I has to do with the scenic and natural beauty of the area. And we did consult with all the state agencies for Maine Historic Preservation, Maine Natural Areas, and just to make sure there wasn't any registered areas around the proximity. We did actually go out as well once that additional land was acquired next door. We went back out and basically surveyed that entire lot as well, just to make sure the survey encompassed the whole project.
Okay. Jay.
So in the second paragraph of section J in the review section, it just references a note to be added on the plan related to the driveway curb cut access to Krista Tish's property. And so, we're in complete agreement to construct a driveway in that in the location where we had provided a sketch to the town, kind of showing where that driveway would go. The reason we didn't show it on the final plans was that we just wanted, this is something that we're basically kind of working with the neighbor on the location of that driveway entrance. And, in the event that he decided she wanted to slide it one way or the other, we just didn't want to have it be something that's on like a subdivision plan. But to the extent that we want to include any sort of, commitment, it's fine with us. I know the town's attorney has been working with Ms. Kish's attorney to come to some sort of agreed upon language that would allow this curb cut to be installed and provide access to that rear lot, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that that lot would be eligible for a building permit. It would have to go through a zoning review if and when they apply for a building permit. But we think it would be appropriate to have that condition on the plan that just states that lot can access Honey Hill Lane, but that any building permits would have to be reviewed in the future.
Dustin, what about the road maintenance costs? Is the two properties that are going to have access to those roads part of that process of the cost, the plowing and costs in particular, and the road maintenance itself?
I mean, right now, the way that the condo association documents are prepared is that the condo is going to be responsible for, all the costs with maintaining that road. That's something that, until such a time there's a dwelling on there, I don't know that we need to, go into that as far as this project goes. As far as the town's concerned, the condo will be completely responsible for maintaining the road. So that's how it's worded. So Jim did have one other comment, just to make sure that we had a boundary survey completed for that additional land that is to be added into the project. We did have that entire 60-acre lot next door surveyed, and we provided a copy of that survey to Jim today with the surveyor's stamp on it, just so the town can have it for their files. The surveyor it was the same surveyor that performed the survey on our lot and the 60-acre lot next door, and that surveyor will be the one stamping the subdivision plan. So that'll certify all the boundary information as being accurate and correct on the final plan that goes to the board for signatures.
Okay. I think you've already taken care of the financial capacity, I believe, right? For item K?
Yep.
Okay. Right.
And I think item L doesn't apply, I believe. I don't think there's any development other than that first little section of roadway that comes in. The rest of the development is more than is outside the shoreline zone. So there are some road standards.
But that, I guess, part of the road is, right? That wasn't the problem.
Yeah. So that first couple hundred feet of road coming in is inside the shoreline zone, and so it just needs to meet the slope requirements, which it does.
Okay. All right. What are we up to? M?
Yep. Section M has to deal with affecting the quality or quantity of groundwater and aquifers. We've got all of our, we've completed HHE 200 septic designs on everything. We have all of our state approvals on the leach fields, and we've also done a nitrate analysis, which includes all of the leach fields that are proposed on the site, showing that we contain the safe drinking water standard of 10 milligrams per liter of nitrates on the property without crossing over the boundaries.
Right.
All that information has been submitted.
And November is not applicable. Over Oscar P.
There are no wetlands on the property. We did have a reviewed, and we provided a letter to the town from a wetland scientist indicating they've looked at it and that there aren't any wetlands.
Well, let's skip down to Q, Quebec.
Yeah, so on Q, the concerns that Jim and I talked about today is it's really around the construction monitoring side of things and erosion controls. He just wants to make sure that if groundwater is encountered during construction, that there's adequate measures put in place to deal with that groundwater, both from a initial dewatering standpoint and also from a like a long-term removal of groundwater in the area of some of the sub-bases of the gravels. So the way Jim and I discussed today as kind of what we thought would be the best way to do it was, just to have, in this case, Cumberland County Soil and Water would be doing the inspections during construction. And, if groundwater is encountered, then we would, notify them and propose a solution as to how we would deal with it in that kind of localized areas. Because what we found is it's very difficult to determine if you are going to have groundwater issues, and if you are, where those locations are going to be. It's just one of those situations that as you get into construction, you may open up a vein that channelizes some groundwater and you have to deal with it. So while there is a hill here, it was more, you just wanted to put everybody on notice that that's something that needs to be looked at. And it's something that we deal with on a regular basis, because you really can't get adequate compaction in the roadways and prep it for paving unless you've got all the water out of the road. So we're very interested in handling water during construction and for the long term.
Okay. I think that wraps up Jim's comments on the first section. Yep. For the board, does anybody have any questions? The first part, the review. Everybody happy? Nice. Greg, you're happy? All right, Dustin.
You talking to me?
Yeah, no, yes. Yeah, I was talking. I want to make sure you're still awake, Greg.
Oh, you caught me sleeping, huh?
I know two items that weren't, I didn't see them listed here in the memo, but it was something that was kind of a carryover from the last meeting and something we addressed in the application. But there were two waiver requests that I believe the board needs to act on for the dead end road standard and the number of units.
Right.
So be an action item that I don't know if we want to go through the full memo or if we want to stop and talk about that while we're in the subdivision section.
It really doesn't, makes no difference. We could do it right now. We could do the, I think the first one is a pretty, the extension of the road. We've done that waiver a number of times. I don't think that's an issue. Alex, do we have any, we don't have anything from the attorney, do we, on the 25, 26? We can indeed waive that?
On the number of units, is that what you asked?
Yep.
We may. Hold on one second. Let me see. I know we got something from him last month. I just want to pull it back up.
Okay.
If you want to move on, I can let you know when I found something.
Okay, yeah, I will do that. Mr. Kennedy, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Hi. If you've been talking, I assume you've been talking with our town attorney. Have you discussed how that lot is going to be incorporated into the subdivision?
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't been able to actually discuss it with Phil. I put a couple emails out to him and I haven't heard back. I think he was on vacation for part of it. And I'm guessing when he came back from vacation, he had a mountain of work. So I put together language, and I know Dustin said he's fine with it, and I think Jim said he's fine with it. My preference would be to get Phil's, the town attorney's, sign off on it as well. But I mean, from my perspective, I have no problem with the waiver, but I'm looking at it from a different perspective than Phil might be. I suspect you're able to still do it for what it's worth, but that's
right.
Yep. Bob, I do have an answer for that question. I did chat with Phil about this, and he's okayed. I believe it's the language that Bill, you had proposed last, which was this curb cut is included with the understanding and intent that an additional dwelling unit can be accessed on this lot by Honey Hill Lane via this curb cut, provided that the additional dwelling unit satisfies all applicable zoning requirements, which was what Dustin had said earlier, I believe. So Phil said that that language is fine from his perspective.
And that's what I had proposed, so it's fine with me as well.
Okay, so is our waiver then for 26 units? Or 25 units?
25.
Hey!
And Bob, just to go back to that, Phil had said it was fine to exceed the 25 as long as they put in writing the waiver request, what they were looking for, and you guys approved it, obviously.
Right. So Jim, go with 25 now and not including the Kirsch lot?
Yeah, because we don't know, the Kirsch lot has to kind of stand on its own because it'll have its own zoning requirement. So that one should just be exempt anyway. So just go with 25 and we'll exempt because we have the note for the Kirsch lot that we've agreed to.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Mr. Kennedy? Is that we do that?
I mean, as long as we get to the same place, I would feel a little better if we did it the other way, where it was just counting ours as the 26th. I think that kind of connects the dots a little more, rather than saying that there's an exemption where we otherwise fit in. I mean, the big picture is, if Krista ends up developing that lot, she just doesn't want to have to go back to you all for approval to, get access via the curb cut that's shown on the plan. So,
Rob, maybe we word it just that it's 25 along with the possibility of one lot for Kirsch, something to that effect. I just don't want 26 to be the number that the development gets. It has to be 25 plus one.
Yeah, because if we go to 26, it actually pulls that lot into the
Right.
right. We
Right.
don't want to do that.
Right. Just go 25 plus the one.
Okay, 25.
25 for the development, one for the addition, one potentially for the Kirsch lot.
But with that language, we really don't need the plus one, right?
Yeah, I just worry that when we write it up, we just have to be careful. That's all, because we're saying that the Kirsch lot is part of the development, and I don't want that.
Okay,
The Kirsch lot stands alone from the development. It doesn't follow it's not part of the subdivision. That's why I just want to make sure it's not part of the subdivision. It's a standalone split at some point down the road. We say 26, we're including it as part of the subdivision. That's
right.
all.
Okay,
Maybe we just say specifically that 25 lots in the subdivision and then the additional Hertz lot. I mean, we actually explain it verbally.
Yep. That makes me feel a little better. Same accomplishment, just wordsmithing.
That rear lot is actually a separate tax lot. I mean, it's map 51 lot 22B. So you could even reference it as its own separate tax lot if you wanted to do it that way.
As long as that lot meets all configurations as a lot in the zone.
Yep.
Has all the lot frontages, all the setbacks, everything like that. I don't know that right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so for the board, the road extension is not a waiver, is not a big deal. We've done that before, and I don't see us having any problems doing that again. My concern is on the waiver, is not so much doing the waiver, it's the language of the waiver. And personally, I think that might be better that we have that language in front of us that we're voting on, by voting on the discussion of what it's going to look like. That's just my feeling. And I go either way with what the board's thinking. I don't think that we will get to a final approval of this meeting, so it would not hold anything up. But, just my thoughts, and I'm happy to go the other way if you guys think we could do it sufficiently without seeing it in writing in front of us.
I agree 100%. I think we ought to have that
Any
language in
thoughts on
front of
it?
us.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I want to see the language
agree.
before we finally approve it. Is it worthwhile to approve the concept today, since this is just a preliminary approval tonight? Approve the concept of these,
Waivers?
of the waivers pending the final, write-up and
The language. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I'll let Dustin, I took you, I think all of us are are going to vote for the waiver. It's just a matter of the language that is how it's presented. So, I mean, we could do a vote that we intend to, but I think it might be, just take our word for it. I think everybody's in favor of it. I don't think anyone is opposed to it that I've heard. Dustin, you have-
If that's, I guess my question is to the board, and I know, I'm sorry I missed the first few minutes here of this discussion, but if there are other items you have that you aren't comfortable voting it for final approval, if this is the only big item you have for approval, I think we can wordsmith it tonight. But if you have other items, then I won't push for it.
Okay, so let's take the road extension and get that out of the way. So we need a motion to accept, to waiver the 1,000 foot dead end road requirements. What are we extending it to, Dustin? 15, 16?
Yeah, it's about 1,600 feet, I think.
15. So do I have a motion to accept that waiver?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, thanks. And I don't have that waiver written in front of me, but I think I've already read it once. We do have a hard copy, Jim, or Alex, of that waiver request?
Yes, we do have a hard copy.
Okay.
It was in the packet from Dustin. Hold on, I have to get it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read it too. I just want to make sure we have it in hard copy.
Yep, we have it in hard copy.
Yeah, it's in the cover letter from the February 16th response.
Okay.
So the very end of the cover letter, page 3 of his cover letter. It was for Article 10, Section 385 and Article 10, Section 386.
Okay, so we have a motion for the waiver. It's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Who did I not get? Mike, Kevin, did I hear you?
Yes, aye.
Okay, and I vote yes, so the motion passes, that waiver is approved. So Jim, just as a recap, for those that are time challenged, we've gone through the first part of your memo, blow by blow.
Yep.
Are there any specific items in that A through T that were not in your memo that you are concerned about or think need to be highlighted to make sure we address?
I think the only thing that is probably going to be the most critical thing is that we have third-party field inspection during the construction.
Yeah, we set that up.
There's going to be some field assessments we're going to have to make, possibly with groundwater, and it's a DEP condition as well.
Okay.
That, and the only other one that I have, but I don't know if Dustin went over, was he's got these walls behind a couple of these condominium units, these steep stone walls. And I don't know if we've got a detail on that or not, or Dustin, I don't know if you went over that or not, but those are some pretty high walls. I know you and I talked today about maybe stepping those down, but we just need to see that prior to construction.
Yeah, that was in the site plan section that we hadn't quite jumped into yet, but
Okay,
yeah.
understood.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think, so talking about the second waiver, I think we have kind of two that are very related things going on, but they're a little bit separate. We have the waiver request, which for the 25 or 26 units, what the waiver request is actually for the second street connection. So the way I was looking at it was that, you know, we presented the project as a 25 unit condo with, there's basically 2 lots who also have rights to this right of way. And that the finding would basically just be that a second road connection is not required. And it doesn't necessarily say, you know, 26 units or 25, or we can attach whatever we want to it. But I think that the other item had to do with the condition of approval, which had to do with the curb cut construction and when that would be built and whether it would provide access to that land. So we kind of have like the two things going on, one being wording of a condition of approval and then the other one being the actual waiver request.
Right.
So you could word that waiver request as to waive the requirement for a second road connection based on the application before you.
And that's how we worded it when we wrote it.
Yeah, which would be the 25 lots plus the one for Kirsch, because that's in the application. It's for the road. He is correct. This is for the road, the second road.
Yeah, great. And I
We
guess
should be able to document that pretty good in the findings as to what exactly we're approving. 25 units plus the one specific lot there.
Yeah, and I think you could word it just like we talked about. This is the allowance of 25 lots for the development plus one for the abutter to access off the common road and waive the requirement of the connection, the second connection.
Okay, so why don't we go with that, your plan, Jim, there? Why don't we push ahead and we'll work on some verbiage for the waiver for the motion. And then if we get to that, we'll come back and we'll do that motion. Sound good? All right. Well, actually, you'll be doing two things now, Jim. Can you also go through the site plan review standards with us?
Just a second here to grab my memo. Okay, the site plan review memo. We went through all the subdivision. Okay, preservation of landscaping. I don't know if you went through this with the subdivision. I just had a concern that we're kind of thin on one property line. I was hoping we could get some fencing or some kind of screening on that one common line. Obviously had nothing with relation to buildings in the environment. Vehicular access, that would really be the fire department's concern as far as making sure they have adequate turnaround space, which I believe you have a memo that says that.
Yeah, Wayne's okay with that.
Yep, you've added more spaces for parking. That meets what we would requested. You have a DEP permit for the surface water drainage. You have a letter from the Poland Water District with regards to utility. Are you guys satisfied with the portable generator for the pump station?
Yeah, that was a point of discussion as to how that actually is going to work.
Yeah, because I think with the documentation that Dustin had, you know, obviously when the power goes out, your water consumption or a lot of utensils in your home drops. And I don't know if they actually provided, but I think I estimated you'd have something like probably a 12-hour window if everybody was using all their water and flushing all their toilets and everything still, which they could because you're on public water. You probably have somewhere between half a day and a day's worth of capacity in that pump station before you start running into problems. If everybody was, flushing. Then they'd have to pull in a up generator. And I guess the question the board may want to have is, who's in charge of that? I think we had this discussion last time. Who's in charge of this generator? Is it on site? Is it to be brought from off site? And I don't know what the comfort level was at, but.
Is it going to be the type of generator that kicks on automatically and has a fuel source?
We don't know that, and that's honestly my only concern so far in this entire project is that alone. A standby generator that auto start. I think that's got to be part of it. You're going to get to a point where there's going to be he said, she said, your generator, my generator. We're going to bring this one up here in 12 hours and store them. That's the only concern I have. Waivers and sure, I get it, but that's just. I'm not feeling good about that.
Yeah, and
I don't know whose responsibility that is, but
I agree with Mark, Dustin. I think we got to have something in there that is beyond somebody's going to roll out their generator and plug it in.
So what we had proposed, and I think we had put this in writing in the last application, and if it wasn't clear, I apologize. But so we're proposing to build a shed structure right next door to the pump station, and we're going to keep a generator in the shed. So rather than putting one that has, a big fuel source tank and all that, it's just a standby generator. It will be a mobile generator, but that's really the only purpose of that shed, is to be able to mount all the electrical controls for the pump station rather than having it on a pedestal. We're going to put all that right on the on that utility shed. Also, there's a bunch of alarms and things like that for the advanced treatment units for the septic systems. All have like one central meter location, so that's all going to be in that shed as well. So it's kind of just a wastewater utility shed is the only purpose, and we will have a permanent generator that sits in that shed that can just go right on the hookup. So all you have to do is put it outside and turn it on.
I just agree with that too. I agree with Mark. It's going to be auto start. It should be tested at least once a month. I test mine every week and run it for 15 minutes, and I get a report. It's online. That's the only way you're going to guarantee that you have a working generator when you need it.
I agree.
Yeah, well, 100%.
So I think, Dustin, it's an automatic charge generator.
Generator.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if that's what everybody wants, then it's, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I don't think that's highly unusual, and I think a lot of these pump stations, now have controls that they can do that.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's fine. That's what we'll do.
Thank you, Dustin.
Want to carry that as a condition?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's
Okay, continuing on. Special features. This is where I get into some of the walls, and I don't know if this came up, but I know there's, Dustin and I kind of talked about this a little bit too, where they are providing access into the Kirsch lot, or a curb cut into the Kirsch lot. Where that curb cut is where currently they have a retaining wall going up that side of the road. And so if they're going to put that curb cut in there, that wall is going to have to be terminated and opened up so that they can make this all fit. And then there's there's some more retaining walls between units 9 and the back of 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 that are shown on the plan that have a pretty substantial reveal of, probably 15 feet and 12 feet. So those aren't little walls. Those are good sized walls. And Dustin had talked about stepping those walls, but the plan doesn't necessarily show that, but doesn't mean it can't be done. So I know, Dustin, you want to just explain the conversation we had today with Kirsch and what they're talking about with that?
Yep. So, for the curb cut Kirsch driveway, when that gets built, we would actually create side slopes in lieu of that retaining wall. So that's something we talked about with her in the field, and that is something that is reflected on the sketch that we provided, which shows the full grading of that driveway. So when that driveway is built, the side slopes will actually, replace that retaining wall, which we're showing along that property line. Yeah.
I have one question. If we do side slopes, then are you going to acquire a grading easement from Kirsch, because that grading will come onto her property? And are you talking the whole wall or just the area where the curb cut is?
Yeah, so that is something that we did talk with, I talked with Bill Kennedy about it today, and that's something that in order for us to build that sidewalk, there needs to be some kind of mutual agreements, whether it's in the form of a license or temporary construction easement or whatever, that allows that driveway to be built with the side slopes, and that we would kind of just work that out with them separately in order to build that driveway and do those side slopes on her property. Because, she wants to be involved as far as, how the looking at some, stone placement and use along that side. And so it's something that we're going to just work with her on. It's not something that's, necessary for the project, but it's something we've committed to and agreed to. And it would just basically replace that wall. So that was the reason why we didn't show it on the final plans, is because we felt that it would have needed some sort of easement to demonstrate that we could build the project, you know, including land that would be on the abutter's property. So that's why we've kind of kept the two separate, from an approved plan set versus this driveway entrance location that we've agreed to do at her direction.
How's the board feel?
Well, but Jim, if I understand the issue correctly, and from what Dustin's saying, is that we're not going to show where the curb cut is on the plans, but there is going to be a curb cut, and that curb cut is will be agreed upon with by Dustin, the contractor, and Mr. Kennedy representing this Kirsch. Is that pretty much what the discussion is?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we've drawn up the plan for the curb cut is, the way we looked at it was that this is how that driveway would be built if Miss Kish was to build it herself. And let's say the road was already in place and then she wanted to build this curb or this driveway curb cut after the fact, then in order to accommodate all the grades, all of this sloping and everything would be done on her property. So that plan was prepared as if we were working directly for her, as opposed to, you know, building out the subdivision project. So again, that's why, because I mean, we don't know if at some point, you know, between now and when we build, if for some reason she changes her mind and just decides she doesn't want the driveway anymore, we just don't want that to impact the project. I mean, we're happy to do it and we're committed to do it. But if she changes her mind and says she doesn't want the driveway for whatever reason, we don't want to then have to go back and re-engineer the plan, put the wall back in and do all of that. We want to just keep it as a standalone project that can stand on by itself, with a commitment that we would do this other kind of alternative design to provide her driveway entrance at her direction.
Well, my concern is in that section, you know, we've got a pretty good vertical drop and we do have a little bit of safety concern there because they do have guardrail currently designed because of the slope drop off from the edge of the road. So if it's about timing, you know, and if we show it on the plan and they move forward with the guardrail, at what point and who's responsible? If Kish comes back and wants to do this, is she going to be responsible for taking up this guardrail and moving this block wall? And how do we know when and if this ever happens? To me, it's, you know, in that section of road, if you look at the plans, there's guardrail and retaining wall. It won't be a cheap driveway at that point.
So, Mr. Kennedy, are we not building this road cut at the time we're building the road?
Well, I think Chris is actually on the call, but it's been my understanding throughout, and maybe I didn't express this clearly, but in my mind, that curb cut was always getting shown on the plan, and we were committed to it. And I know, frankly, I mean, I think that is my preference as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be on there. And we looked at the latest plan that Dustin put together showing the curb cut. We were on board with that.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then you will have to grant a grading easement to the developer to do that side slope.
Correct. And Dustin and I talked about that today, and I didn't have a chance to get back to him, but my client's on board with that. We're happy to, we'll figure it out, but some kind of license or easement for that work.
Okay.
I do think that, you know, Bob, we're getting to a point though, of, you know, I'm not sure I'm comfortable granting all these conditions on that one, because that one, I would like to see how that would work with the road. Because I still think there's sections that we're going to want guardrail through there. And the sketch that he has doesn't show guardrail, but the plan set that you have before you, the actual plan set does. So I just think we need to make sure that if the sketch that he submitted this one in the letter, is what they want, we should see that on the plan set.
On the plan. What is the board? I think Jim makes sense. Is the board okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can see where Dustin's concern is that her lot is not part of the subdivision. So in a way, it's sort of strange to have something on the plan that really is impacting a lot not part of the subdivision. However, another part of me says that we need, as a planning board, to somehow maybe not guarantee, but give her some sort of way to enforce it. So the only way I can think of is to have it on the plan.
All right.
Yeah, I think where she has legal rights to have that access, that they being the developer should have to show that legitimate access, just to say that there's a right, and physically it couldn't work without actually building it. So to me, they should show it as if, you know, like they do with the other piece that went off the other side. They should show at least the curb cut and how it works to get into that property.
Yep, for sure.
I think, I mean, I can understand where the board's coming from and everything. It just, a lot of this ends up being, it's a little bit, you know, certainly frustrating on our side because, you know, a lot of these things we're doing, we're trying to do as a convenience and as, you know, trying to be good neighbors with this particular property owner. They've had some concerns. We're trying to do everything that we can. And it just, it does get a little bit difficult when it turns into, because normally these sort of things would just be done privately. We wouldn't bring it to the board and talk about, you know, somebody else, you know, just coming in with their driveway. In this case, because, you know, there's been so much concern, we've been very transparent and open about these private negotiations that we're doing with the landowners next door. But it is, you know, it is a little difficult, just the fact that we're talking so much about it.
Yeah, and I hear you, Dustin, but at the same token, they have a right to access this. And, you know, if you didn't do anything, they'd go up that road and they'd be able to turn in and do their access. But by the developer building the road higher than the existing grade, they kind of create this unusual condition, making it difficult for her, if you were to build the road after the fact, come back and kind of modify it. So in some regards, developer is creating the condition that's making it difficult for them to have their allowed access.
I think that's an important point that I think sells to me that we need to have it on the plan.
Okay. Is there any other comment on this one? No. All right. We're going with a revision to the plan to show the road cut placement and the grading that's required for the road. Jim?
Yeah, you just want to see the access and the grading to serve the Kish lot.
Which means we're going to require some sort of agreement between.
That's up to the final design. You know, if they need to push into the lot, we'll need to see a grading plan. If they can't do it without going into the lot, then so be it. But the way it's shown right now, they'll need a grading easement from Kish.
But then they would also need permission to do that grading, right?
Yeah, a grading easement would be an agreement, an actual.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And that's not going to be a problem from our end.
Okay. All right. Any other, Jim?
Yeah, and Dustin, are you going to do a step wall for those back units or?
Yep, I think what makes the most sense for those is that we basically just provide a sketch on those back units showing how that wall will be stepped, and that you know, if you know, if we could say, you know, if there's a wall that's taller than, you know, 8 feet, that it provides some sort of, you know, like engineered design. But I think the idea is that we would just step that wall up as we get closer to the building, and it would be a tiered wall. We're not going to build a straight, you know, 10, 12 foot vertical wall.
Alex, is there a code requirement for rail or restriction based on a wall height?
Well, we typically, when possible, I know Wayne and I have talked about this before. If there's a situation where there could be a significant drop, and it's next to a walkway or within 36 inches of a spot where someone could be, we treat it just like building code. I mean, we like to have fall protection in areas where it's more than a 30-inch drop.
So we need some kind of, so what you're saying, we need some kind of fence or rail if we're going to have more than 30, did you say 30 or 36?
If it's more than a 30-inch grade difference, then we usually require some type of fall protection.
Also under that, you just want to move on now, Bob?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on, I know we don't have sidewalks in here, but I did know if it might make sense to, because we have the open space, at least show some trail connectivity to that open space. And I know there's all kinds of existing trails in there, but it might be just beneficial just to outline the access point to go to that open space, that wedge that's dedicated for the open space in the back. H, exterior lighting. I don't believe they've provided any, they're not going to have any overhead lighting. Emergency access, we've gone over that. Landscaping, we've touched on that. And then, go ahead.
Jim, I would have a comment on the emergency access.
Okay.
Been working with Dustin on establishing the fire lanes and no parking areas. In the copy of the plans that Dustin submitted on the 2nd, he had those items listed out in the notes, which would take care of that. And then the final thing was making sure that the condo declaration also has provisions in there for the fire lanes and the firewalls in the buildings and tow policies in the condo docs.
So we don't typically get into the content of the document, condo docs. We just make sure they're in place.
But I think you've already agreed to that, haven't you, Dustin? You've already agreed to doing all that.
I mean, yeah, what Wayne's asked for, he's given us very good, precise language as to what he's looking for in those documents. So we have no issue with.
We're good.
Good. And then we had talked about that we'll need a survey of the survey stamp on the new piece that's been acquired for the open space, that long triangle. We haven't seen a stamp survey of that yet, so that'll need to be, I assume that'll be part of the subdivision plan. When we get it back, it'll be stamped by a surveyor. You added the parking spaces. Oh, and one of the last items I had was the, I think because of the unique nature of this lot and the confinement, we would like to see a construction management plan so that when we have our construction, pre-construction meeting, they'll provide us a construction management plan. There's a lot of things going on here and there's not a lot of space to store materials and equipment. So we just like to see an organization of how that would all come together, because I mean, obviously you got a long narrow neck going into this that we're going to be constructing. And then you've got all these condos and roads and, stormwater ponds and septic systems. And it's a pretty congested site. So we just want to see how it's all going to come together, make sure it's protected from erosion because it is on the slope. And there was a little bit, I want to see a little bit more erosion control behind those units 8, 9, and 10, 11 too. So it can all be kind of addressed in the pre-construction plan, but we would like to have a condition that we do see a construction management plan.
Okay.
And I think that is pretty much it because we've gone over the wall at the Kish lot.
This is not a public hearing, but I see that Jennifer, you've joined us. Do you have a question for us or just kind of like to watch?
No, just listening in. I work for Remax by the Bay, so just keeping an ear out.
Okay.
That's all.
All righty. So how to proceed? I mean, it sounds like we are certainly at a preliminary approval plan. And then with the only thing hanging now would be the verbiage for how we're going to handle the 2 road cuts. And then what we've talked about, the driveway cut for the Kirsch property and kind of odds and ends.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, step walls.
Step walls.
Yep, we got walls, and then we want the auto start for the pump station generator.
Right.
Yep.
So for the board, it's sounding like a preliminary approval vote for this evening and then final approval when we get the rest of the stuff in. Or we could go with final approval and with the whole list of conditions, which would put all those things into conditions that we're waiting for. Dustin, I know you probably want to get going, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, I was taking notes as we went down through here. It sounds like the conditions are we've provided that grading plan for the driveway. We just need to basically transpose that onto our actual plan set so we don't have 2 plans. And we'll work with Jim on the extent of, guardrail or anything like that that's needed. We'll make sure he's happy with the final layout of that plan with the grading. And then as far as those stone walls behind those 2 units, we'll just step those up the hill. We don't need to have a big, backyard area like we're showing. I'll just step those up the hill so we don't have tall walls there. That's not a problem. And then we've already agreed to the standby generator. So I think those were the ones that I had in my notes here. And it seems like that would be pretty straightforward for me to add to the plans. And it's stuff that you've already seen as far as that driveway and everything goes. And I think we're all in agreement with the neighbor as to what, the way we've drawn it up is we're going to just transpose it onto the other plan. So
We'll need a grading easement.
Yep. Yeah, that would be a condition, as it would provide that executed drainage easement or executed grading easement or license prior to starting construction.
All right, so how does the board feel? I mean, we don't normally go with final approval with this many conditions sitting out there, but we've been working this project for almost a year, I think. So we're pretty familiar with it. What do you guys want to do?
I'm comfortable with it. It seems pretty well in order.
Jim, are you comfortable with it, with the list of conditions?
As long as we can, I guess I would like to, if there's one thing, if we do these list of conditions, I would like to see the execution of the grading easement and all this prior to you signing the final subdivision plan.
Okay.
Not before construction. I'd like to see it before we sign it, just because that's kind of an important item.
Yeah, that's fine. We can get that done between now and when everybody gets in the same room again, whenever that's going to be.
Kevin, what's your feelings on this?
I agree with Jim, get everything done before we sign, and I guess we could go ahead. It's just a lot of things to say, all these dependencies without having them all in writing and finalized, but I'd be willing to go along with it tonight.
Can I just have a quick point of clarification with Dustin, just to make sure we're on the same page?
Yeah, sure. Right ahead.
And we talked about this, I believe, at the site visit we had. I just want to make sure it's kind of on your radar, because it's probably more important to my client than yours. But just to clarify that for that curb cut, Obviously, the guardrail is going to be removed so we can get down through the curb cut. And I believe there was going to be boulders kind of placed around that area, so it'd be more of a kind of natural look, and that the part of the curb cut that goes into my client's property that you all were going to reseed it afterwards. So as long as that's the understanding, then I think I'll double down on the construction easement being okay. And I just want that to be reflected and just sort it out now so we don't, goop things up.
You hold the cards because they need to get the easement from you. So you do hold the cards for them to execute this. So you two can work out what construction details you want, but you hold the cards as far as executing that. You have to sign it too.
I'm just trying to figure, I don't want to, I'm just trying to be upfront about it, but yeah.
And I don't personally care whether it's boulders or a guardrail, but we got to have we've got a pretty big vertical drop there on the edge of that road. So we need some kind of restriction to not let vehicles in the winter slip down over the embankment there.
Yep. And that is what we talked about at our site meeting, was that by being able to grade onto Miss Fish's property with some fill slopes, we're going to be able to revegetate that, put in some, boulder, small rocks as, edge protection versus a, guardrail that's very, industrial looking. And that the actual physical surface of the driveway, we're going to build it with gravel so that it's stable and you can drive on it, but we are going to loam and seed over the top of it afterwards. So it's not going to be just a big gravel, road going into her property. It'll all be seeded, but it'll be, stabilized, built out as a gravel driveway, and then seeded over the top of it. So when she looks out back, it'll be grass with some boulders around it protecting it. And that to the extent that she wants to, put up a gate or any sort of anything blocking somebody from driving down it, we can leave that up to her however she wants to do it. I don't think it's necessary that it needs to be kept open and, anybody can go down there. So, we're agreeable to all that.
Thank you.
Dustin, my preference would be to have all of it laid out in front of us when we vote on it, and not to put a long list of conditions on the approval. But my question to you is, and honestly, what is the big impact if we get all this put together and final approval comes at the next meeting? Does that throw a monkey wrench?
Well, you're not going to, personally, Bob, you got a good point, because you wouldn't sign it till next meeting.
Plans.
Yeah, really, what ends up happening is, as far as, construction financing, notifying contractors are holding windows and schedules and things. And if we were to get an approval tonight, what that would tell us is that we have a laundry list of things to do, that the town's not going to tell us that we can commence construction until everything is signed and done. But by getting a vote for an approval, what it tells us is that we have a final punch list that we work on before we can start. And then we can go to the bank, let them know that the board voted to approve. They can start underwriting, getting all that stuff finalized. And we can tell contractors that we're ready to start in 30 days versus, there's a lot of things that could happen. We could not have a quorum in a month. We could, there's just things that could happen. And now we've told the contractor that it's a big job, and for someone to postpone it another month because of a technicality or something. And we understand that things happen, and we're not, it's just, those things do happen. And then it's a huge ripple effect through the project. If we don't have something that says, okay, in 30 days, we're going to have a signed plan, and we're going to kind of be working towards something.
But if we give you preliminary approval this evening, you will have the same thing as if we gave you approval tonight with a whole list of conditions. I don't think the timeline is going to change for you. Maybe by a couple of days at max. Am I reading it? If I'm wrong, please tell me, but I don't think that's.
What you're thinking, Bob, is we grant preliminary, we clean up these things, they come to the next meeting, and we sign at the next meeting.
Yeah, then we're done.
Where if we grant approval tonight with a bunch of conditions, we're still not gonna sign it till the next meeting.
Yeah, we understand that. I mean, we're not gonna be putting up units for me, but we can't offer units for sale or anything like that until we have a signed plan. But it's like, it's like anything goes. I mean, nothing's approved until it's approved, so we're just one step closer, which is awesome. I appreciate everyone's time on this, but until we get a final vote, we're still just waiting.
Right. But as far as the board goes, and as far as my understanding goes, I don't think we're holding the project up because nothing is going to happen until the next meeting either way.
Right. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, either way, it's the same. We give a final approval, contingent upon clarification. So it's a verbal final approval, but it's not a final approval. It's the same. It's the same thing. We have to wait to see all the we have to wait till the next meeting regardless. So it's we all agree we're gonna move forward with it, but it's the same thing. It's a verbal agreement.
So is there any objection to moving from the board, moving forward in that direction, give preliminary approval, give along, we've got the list of things that need to be completed, punch list out, and then we'll be prepared for final approval next month. And in that time, we also would have the curb cut, the waiver for the second curb cut worked out as well.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree too.
I agree with that.
Okay. So then can I get a motion for preliminary approval?
I move that we grant preliminary approval for this project.
Second.
All right, so the motion is for preliminary approval for the Raymond Hills Village, applicant Raymond Hills LLC. There's been a second. Is there any other discussion? And all those in favor, Ed, start with you.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I vote yes. We are unanimous. Preliminary approval is approved. And there shouldn't be any problems. That's in the next meeting.
Okay, it sounds like we're pretty much there. So yeah. Well,
Yeah, it sounds as if we just knocked that punch list out, that the board is basically verbally agreed that once we knock that punch list out, they'll be ready to go with final.
Yep.
It's not formal yet.
I'm assuming next month is Zoom again, or are you back to in person?
I think we have not discussed that, but Kevin and I were just discussing that off meeting, so I'm guessing we're going to be Zoom again, but that's one of the things we will talk about here shortly. If you hang on, you'll find it.
So with the Zoom meetings, that just means that the planning board members, you just come into the office and sign the plan, one at a time, or okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Very good.
Now, what about the Mylar? Will that be available as well?
Well, that's going to be what we'll work on with, we'll work with Jim and Alex and Sandy and just make sure that everything's buttoned up on the plan so that you'll have a hard copy in the office when we have this next meeting, so that when you vote on it, you can come in and sign the plan when you're ready. So we'll just get everything all buttoned up so that we just go right through it.
And Jim, you can have the finding of facts ready to go for the next meeting?
Yeah, if we get this buttoned up in a short order, I'm on vacation for 10 days, but when I get back, if Dustin's got that all ready to go, I can have that drafted, ready to go.
I thought that palm tree behind you was
I'm not there yet. I'm going south, but I'm not there yet.
Yep. So I'll have it all wrapped up when he gets back, and I'll work with Bill Kennedy on that. Will be the only thing that we just got to make sure we've got finalized is that easement document with them, just so that's not an item that we have to revisit.
Yeah, and Dustin, you can, obviously you can show the easement area on the plan and then reference that in your easement language, if that helps. I'll let you guys work it out, but you can do it that way too.
Okay, item 5, planner communications. Jamie, you have anything for us?
I don't, but Mr. Alex does.
Code enforcement.
Yeah. So yeah, I did send over the link for the document on the website that shows the updated ordinance amendments, and we can go through that if you want. There's some changes from last month, very minor changes, nothing huge. If you want to run through it, it should only take a minute or two, hopefully. But we did have a few changes. I don't know if I can screen share. It doesn't look like I can. So if you have that up, I think the first change is actually number 4, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Yeah, the first change is number 4. And that was, sorry, not number 4, number 2. That's the solar ordinance, and basically the attorney went through it and he has changed the section that's highlighted, and he has changed the definition slightly in the phrasing of this to commercial solar energy systems. And basically he altered the end of that first paragraph so that the code officer has the authority to issue permits for a residential solar system. Someone has solar panels at their house, but you guys will have to do site plan for anything commercial, which was the intent that we had from the start. So he just went through and essentially cleaned it up and expanded on that in the way that he thought would make the most sense legally. So that's that. You'll see there's a definition in there, a new definition. Number 4 was the definitions, and that one did go to the attorney. He had a comment. If you look at the document, I think I put it in there. I put his email in there. It is page 21 of the PDF. And so he didn't really have any red flags at his first look through of this, but what he did question was, and Jim, I don't know if you've seen this, but you'll love it if you haven't, it was for the treatment of retaining walls. So him and I are going to work on this later this week. And so, Jim, I know you're gone next week, but what him and I will do is probably put something together. We may have to move that around, the retaining wall thing around a little bit. And he's going to tweak this document and we'll get that over to you. My question was, are you guys okay with this as it is currently? And you feel comfortable bringing it to public hearing with the attorney's amendments to it? Or is it something that you'll need to look at again before the public hearing? Because we're planning on doing that at the next meeting.
Right. I have no problems with bringing it. I mean, I don't think we're going to argue with the attorney. So
yeah, that's fair.
Well, it gets changed, it's fine with us.
Okay. I assumed, but I figured I'd ask.
Yeah.
So we'll work on that with Jim once he's back. Number 5, Jim, I did see you sent over a revision to this, but I didn't have a chance to loop that in here. So do you want to just describe what you've changed?
Yeah, into that subdivision, and this gets to the 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Really, in the subdivision ordinance, we don't allow for that, and I just kind of cleaned that up a little bit. And it was just some confusing existing language, which I just added in there, that the terminus must be a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead, and it must come off a town-approved road or town-approved private road, essentially.
Okay. All right. So again, is that something you guys are okay moving forward with that minor change? Have
I
you
got a
not
question.
seen it?
I have a question on that one, Jim. Are we changing any of the street ordinance
No.
language that we
actually,
approved?
Yeah, in that section of the ordinance, we're referencing the street ordinance, so it has to be built per the street ordinance.
Okay.
All right.
Hearing no objections, I think we're good.
Okay. Number 6, the only change was I updated solar energy systems to commercial solar energy systems. I think that was it for that.
You added outdoor sales and outdoor storage under conditional uses.
Yeah, that was on there last time, so that shouldn't be new. Number 7, I think we had no changes as well. Let me just see.
Same thing, commercial. You added to the list in the shoreline zoning, I think.
Yep. Yeah. So amendment number 7, no changes, and number 8 had no changes. So that is it. So that was easy, right?
That was easy.
So now we have to prep for public hearing next month. Sandy, do they need to make a motion to do that? And you're familiar with the notice requirements, so I know we don't need to go over that.
Yeah, I would make it so the board has a formal motion to post this as a public hearing.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Jim.
So we need a motion to post ordinance changes 1 through 8 for public hearing on the next April something. April next meeting. Calendar. April 13th.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second,
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone votes yes. We are unanimous for posting. Either Alex or Jim, whoever, probably Alex, probably you. For in the past, for our ordinance changes, we've kind of written up a very short intro paragraph just to explain what's being changed. It makes it a lot easier for the discussion. If there is any discussion, I don't anticipate there's going to that we've got any high interest items here, but it's easier for those people that go on the website to actually, just read this short paragraph as to what's being changed, as opposed to try to go through the ordinance and figure out what's being changed.
Yeah, I think we've just called that up. Sorry.
Each one of them actually does already have a summary. So I will just expand. A couple of them need to be expanded on and updated. So I'll go through each one and beef those up a little bit.
Okay.
So I guess the next time would be your discussion about return in person or remaining remote.
Correct. So Kevin and I talked a little bit about this before the meeting. Cumberland County is still red. So I'd say that we probably should stay Zoom for the next meeting, and then look at least 1 month, see if we're out of red before we can kind of go back to meetings with masks or meetings without masks.
I think we should go have the option of hybrid meetings.
Hybrid meetings starting next meeting? Or?
Well, I mean, it depends on the people. I mean, that gives people that like to be in person, the choice. But I still think masks should be enforced until we get out of, like you say, out of the red.
Basically, Kevin, return to what we were before we went remote this time.
Yes.
Ed, what are your feelings?
I'm okay either way. If we have in-person meetings, it's okay with me. I would like to have mask requirement though.
In person's fine.
Right.
In my mind, it has been all along.
I agree as well. In person, fine, and I don't need anything. I'm good.
Okay. So our next meeting then, the public hearing will be will be hybrid. It'll be either remote or in person, depending upon who's going where.
Well, before, right, Kevin was the outlier because of his medical condition. So would we follow the same context with this next meeting?
Yeah, because I will be an outlier as well, because I won't be back.
Okay.
So Ed's standing by to run the meeting if I cannot make it. If it were going in person for a public hearing, Ed, it might just make sense for you to run that meeting. I can be on the big screen with Kevin.
Okay. Yeah, we'll plan on that.
At least they won't be so huge.
Does that sound okay with everybody? I don't think we need a motion or anything, because that will just return to hybrid meetings on the April 13th meeting.
Yeah, Sandy, are you clear what needs to be posted on the website or on the notices?
Yeah, I'll take a quick review of all of it, but yeah, I got it.
Okay.
And as far as new business goes, Bob, I do know that Sebago will have that subdivision coming in for on Raymond Cape.
Right.
In the April meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll need to get a hold, Sandy, you'll have to get a hold of Will Haskell.
Yes.
For Jim, for site plan?
Subdivision, I believe.
Yeah, so but site plan review or preliminary?
That's a subdivision.
Preliminary.
Preliminary. Okay.
Right, it would be preliminary.
Okay.
And I don't know, you guys have to determine, did that have, I don't think that's at a public hearing, so this one will probably be a public hearing too, right?
The first, they only came in for sketch plan.
Sketch plan.
Yeah.
Well, at some point you gotta have a public hearing, it's all, just, I'll let you guys.
Right.
I'm walking away.
Well, do you think it's going to be a two meeting approval?
Typically, that's the way we've done subdivisions in the past. We've done preliminary and then we've done final, public hearing and final.
Yeah, so.
That's a major, so I mean, that one should be probably I mean, typically majors are usually 2 meetings.
Yeah, so let's just do, let's do the public hearing next time, and then we'll do it at the next round, the final round.
It's up to you guys. I mean.
Well, because we have the, you know, the public hearing for the ordinances, so we'll keep them separate.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this one we won't advertise as public hearing.
Right.
Gotcha.
That's for our ordinance review.
Right.
Right. So, wait, just, you know, actually remember, but, you know, each of the ordinances we have to approve individually, and we forward with a vote to the selectmen, either approved, forwarded being approved, or just forwarded without action, or forwarded recommending non-approval. So there's.
Yeah, you have to open it up for public hearing on each one, so the public can discuss each one individually. If there's no public comment, you can just move quickly to a motion.
Right.
To submit it to the.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, if you know, for some reason I can't log on, I just want to make sure Ed was aware that there's 3 different types, 3 different answers to each of the ordinances as to how you how you make the motion to send it to the selectmen.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it might be a good idea if I talk to you offline and have some questions.
Okay, sure. All right, anything else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Everybody wants to stay?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All approved. Motion passes. Ed, do you want to stay online right now or?